it's gonna be nice.
Oh.
Fancy.
Good morning. Welcome to United First Parish Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, welcome to our Unitarian Universalist spiritual community. We are delighted to welcome anyone who may be visiting with us. You can learn more about our community by going to our website, www.ufpc.org. I'm the Reverend Rebecca Froom. Our worship leaders this morning on screen and behind screen are Joan McDonald, our Director of Religious Education, and Clyde Courtwright. Special thanks to Joan for making the remembrance slideshow that we'll experience later in this service. Our music today includes the violinist, Nijoma Grievous, who has performed at United First Parish Church in the past. You heard her solo music just now, and later we'll hear her playing with her quartet from Hilliard. Dan Schatz, a UU minister and folk musician, is also providing some of the music today. And we'll be hearing from Dr. Yise Barnwell, a member of Sweet Honey in the Rocks. The order of service for this morning can be downloaded from our UFPC website, www.ufpc.org. The link is pasted in the chat. The order of service includes notes about some of the morning's musicians and their music. We'll paste song lyrics into the chat as we go along as well. For our online worship services, we invite you to go ahead and leave your video on so that we can see one another when in gallery view, even though we are physically apart. Note that we are recording this morning's service to be posted on YouTube at a later date. If you prefer not to be seen in the recording, please turn off your video. And if at any time during the service you are having poor connection issues, experiment with turning off your video at that point. We invite everyone to stay online after the service for our virtual social hour. This morning, our social hour will include the option of breakout groups to reflect on the theme of today's service. And now let us center ourselves for worship by taking a deep breath together. Feeling that spirit of life and love that moves within, between, and beyond us all, as Joan shares the words for the call to worship.
Our call to worship comes from Angela Herrera. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision. Bring them with you and your joy and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing. There is work to do, and you have all that you need to do right here in this room. Now everyone is invited to light a chalice or a candle, and if you put yourselves on gallery view, we will light a chalice this morning.
Our chalice lighting has words adapted by words from Betsy Dar. May the light of this chalice bring warmth to our community when we are joyful and when we despair. And may we feel the warmth spread from our circle to wider and wider circles until all know they belong to the one circle of life. I invite you to join me in saying our words of covenant, words that are appearing on your screen. As a free fellowship of this historic church, we unite to lift our hearts and open our minds to a larger reality, to accept, support, and encourage one another, to seek the wisdom in all religions, to cherish and to sustain the web of life, and to strive for justice, compassion, and peace. Our first song this morning is Swimming to the Other Side by Pat Humphries of Emma's Revolution. We'll be hearing a version performed by Dan Schatz, and Clyde will paste the lyrics into the chat.
We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection will be my crime. In humility I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey, thoughts and feelings, binding intuition, my head, my heart. I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me band together, be my guide. Loving lessons I will follow, all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side.
Let us take a deep breath together as we open our hearts for the sharing of our joys and sorrows. This is a time for us to briefly share the life milestones that lift your spirits in joy, or the hope and pains that fill you and the losses that fill you with heartache. As we enter this time of sharing, we will light a candle of joy, knowing that a joy shared is a joy magnified, and also a candle of sorrow, knowing that a sorrow shared is a sorrow diminished. As we end our sharing, I will light a final candle representing all of those joys and all of those sorrows that we hold silently in the sanctuary of our hearts. May the light of these candles and the compassion of this community remind us that wherever we are on our journey, each of us is worthy of love, and each of us is able to love. Let us return to that breath of life and love. For a moment, easing the tension from our bodies, moving our shoulders back, releasing items from our hands. And as we breathe together, we will enter a time of shared sacred silence. Will you lift your hearts and join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, listening in these words for the language of faith most meaningful to you? Our prayer this morning includes words by the Reverend Jude Geiger. Eternal presence, known by many names, known in many ways. We gather this morning, each of us in some way broken, each of us in some way whole. We gather as people who are vulnerable and strong. We open our hearts to all those among us who are struggling with their health. For Lee, that they might have recovery from an injury, so that they might have patience and perseverance to heal while also mourning the loss of activity. We open our hearts to Mesa as she and her family treat her for Lyme disease. We open our hearts to G-Fred and his long recovery. We open our hearts wider still to embrace all of our family, especially Fiona's brother who's living with COVID. We open our hearts to all of those individuals, those families, those communities that are struggling with COVID, aware of all the ways in which that virus is taking and transforming lives and livelihoods. May we remember that we have a mutual responsibility to keep one another safe. We give thanks for the ways in which we are caring for one another. And in times of fear for the future, may we also have faith that we will find ways to love and care for one another. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, in these times where there is grief on our hearts, remembering and mourning those who have died peacefully, violently, those who have died recently and long ago. In this time of grief, this time of fear, let us remember that savoring joy is an act of resilience. Let us celebrate the joys in our lives, milestone birthdays from 2 to 25 to 60 and beyond. Let us celebrate the life transitions that bring us into a new chapter of life, that help us create and recreate home. Let us celebrate the beauty of the earth, that striking beauty of snow on autumn-colored leaves, the beauty that is also found in our relationships and in our hearts. Source of our being, source of our goodness. In this election season, we pause before the weight of the fear and the trepidation for a nation that has in many ways lost its way. Many fear that regardless of the outcome, there will be those who are emboldened to violence. Spirit of life, may your peace hold our nation as we wrestle with learning who we are, even knowing that many among us have known this violent truth for 400 years. For those exhausted, may we share our strength. For those fearful, may they know the love of community. For those without hope, remind them that the story is not yet over, and we have one another to help turn the page of that story to another day. We ask this in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. We ask this in the name of all the helpers of humankind. Amen, and blessed be. Our reading this morning is titled, "They Are With Us Still," by Kathleen McTeague. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us, it is right to remember those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices and their hands and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. This morning is our annual remembrance service, and in our online worship service today, we will be seeing a slideshow of the faces and names of many of our ancestors, our beloved dead. And I also invite you to use the chat to type in names of those family and friends and ancestors who have gone before, who you would like to bring into this space of memory and hope. Let us open our hearts to remember our beloved dead. And I bring into this space names listed in our chat, and forgive my humanity for any name mispronunciations I have. We also honor and remember Sigfredo Rivera, Jane Rosenstyle, Alice Warner, Mary Jane Miller, Joe Perry, Ursula Allen, Peter Sherriman, George Sankey, Abdul Wahab Qureshi, Russ Savella, Wayne Bates, Harry J. Heineman Jr., Jean Wayman, and many others. Let us remember that these ancestors are with us still. Returning to the words of Reverend Jude Geiger, as the wheel of the year turns another season, with the chill in the air growing stronger, we have paused to remember those who we have lost in our lives. We remember the small moments that stand out amidst our great stories, the breakfasts that were unnoticed at the time, but taken on so much more now. The laughter, the hope, the dreams. May our loss turn in our hearts into something different. May we find a profound joy in the gift of knowing those we have loved. And may it teach us to cherish those around us even more. May our remembering of the lives we have known teach us to live fully into the lives we live. deepen our ties to the community we are surrounded by, to the families of our birth or the families of our choosing, for our stories to continue on. Our world needs our loving all the more. In the seasons of cold winds and long nights, remember that the wheel continues to turn, and the warmth we once knew will return again and again. We pray this in love's name. Amen. And blessed be. On this Sunday, which is both our Remembrance Sunday and the Sunday before the election, we hear a reflection from the Reverend Ranwa Hamami from the UU the Vote campaign.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. As a song leader, one of the songs that I keep returning to, particularly in these days of uprising and reckoning, is Ella's song, written by Dr. Bernice Johnson Regan and performed by Sweet Honey and the Rock. Its lyrics, which I know some of you are already very familiar with, set to music the words of Ella Baker, an organizer, activist, leader, teacher, a prophet in the civil rights movement. Until the killing of Black men, Black mothers' sons, becomes as important to the rest of the country as the killing of a white mother's son, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it happens. Ella Baker's words in this song are ones she wrote over 50 years ago, but they could have been written yesterday. And I'll be honest, that reality breaks my heart. It leaves me crying out, will it ever end? For some of us, that question is one that has literal life and death implications that the rest of us cannot fully know. And as much as Ella Baker's words break my heart, they also charge my spirit. Their relevance to today's manifestation of resistance and community reminds me that we are a continuation of something much bigger, much more powerful, much more incredible than this single moment in our history. Our struggles to affirm the humanity and basic rights of Black and brown lives in this country and world, they did not begin with us, and they will not end with us. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Now, I admit it took me several years of singing these words to realize that Ella Baker probably wasn't telling me, Renwadiot Mustafa Taha Hamami, personally to never rest. No. In fact, none of us as individuals should be asked or expected to never rest. But all of us who believe in freedom, as a collective, as a community, we cannot rest. Ella's song, Ella's words are a charge for all of us together as a movement to never rest. We cannot stop fighting, we cannot stop creating, we cannot rest until freedom in its truest and most universal form exists in our world. Our faith as Unitarian Universalists who don't all agree on what happens after this life can all believe that what happens in this life matters so deeply that we have been called heretics, broken unjust laws, and probably gotten ourselves on more than one government list to make it known that we will not rest until freedom for every last one of us comes. And to be that unceasing, everlasting, perseverant, irritatingly prophetic movement that never rests, we need to reaffirm, deepen, and reaffirm our connections to each other as Unitarian Universalists. To remember that if we do this work together, we can not rest. And just as important, to be a true continuation of that much bigger, much more powerful, much more incredible freedom movement, we not only need to sustain our relationships within our faith, but we must build and sustain the relationships with communities and frontline liberators who have been leading the way to universal freedom for generations. We who believe in freedom cannot rest and cannot rest when we act as a truly interdependent collective. When we are carrying our load on the way to liberation, remembering that we are part of a movement reminds us that we are not carrying that load alone. Like a choir whose singers stagger their breathing to make sure a single note remains an unbroken sound, or a hospital that runs non-stop with a rotating staff, like migrating geese who take turns leading, following, or resting in their flying formation. We cannot rest, and we can not rest until freedom comes if we sustain our connections to one another. We need each other so that when we as individuals do rest, we know our movement towards universal freedom carries on, waiting for us to return and temporarily relieve another of their liberation load. As we count down the days to Election Day, we know that no matter the outcomes, our work will continue. We will not rest. We can not rest if we take care of each other and our shared vision for universal freedom that is possible, knowing that each and every one of us is doing the same for all of us. And knowing that our collaboration in this moment is a continuation of a movement that knows there will come a day when we, all of us who believe in freedom, can finally rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
One of the photos that I included in our remembrance slideshow was of my father, the Reverend Burton Froom. He was born in 1935 and died in 2018. And many of you have heard me talk from our pulpit about his involvement in the civil rights movement, doing voter registration work in Hattiesburg, Mississippi in 1964. And during that trip in 1964, he met with young people from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, known as SNCC. Now, my dad was 28 and so already older than many of these organizers, and he learned so much from them. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, was formed through a conference in 1960 for young people who had been involved in sit-in movements in the 1950s. The invitation for the conference came from the Southern Christian leadership that is well known for being aligned with Martin Luther King and other great leaders. But the conference itself was organized by Ella Baker, and it was her philosophy of a truly grassroots organizing, non-hierarchical leadership with consensus decision-making that deeply informed SNCC. SNCC became one of the most powerful forces in the civil rights movement, sometimes challenging the Southern Christian Leadership Coalition. And at the time SNCC was founded, Ella Baker was 55, not herself a student, but she became known as the godmother of SNCC. She mentored young people such as Diane Nash, Julian Bond, John Lewis, and Bernice Johnson Regan, who wrote Ella's song. Ella Baker was in turn mentored and influenced by her grandmother, Josephine Elizabeth Ross, a woman who was born into slavery. And the stories from Josephine Ross were stories of suffering and courage that taught Ella about injustice, as well as the work for justice. The message of Ella Baker's words are still relevant today. Until the killing of Black men, Black mothers' sons, becomes as important to the rest of the country as the killing of white mothers' sons, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until this happens. It is a tragic truth that Baker's words are still so relevant. And in the reflection we just heard, Reverend Hamami describes how that tragic relevance breaks our hearts and also charges our spirits. We live in violent and volatile times, and we must continue to strive for justice. This striving can be exhausting, demoralizing. Yet our spirits can be charged and recharged by honoring those who have gone before us, those whose work and words inspire us, mentors and leaders who are still alive, and ancestors who are now dead. Reverend Hamani tells us that the work for justice did not begin with us and will not end with us. We can draw on the strength and resilience of those who have come before, sometimes ancestors from our own family tree, like it was the case for Ella Baker, sometimes societal ancestors, sometimes movement ancestors whose values and organizing strengthened the cause that we now align ourselves with. We remember what these ancestors survived and what they did not survive. And we can continue to draw upon their wisdom, learned through life experience and remembered through the telling of stories and the singing of songs. At this turning point in the year, at this turning point in history, I also remember that each of us will one day become ancestors. At the height of her organizing in the 1960s, Ella Baker met and mentored a young John Lewis. And this year marked the death of John Lewis, a man who was an organizer, a leader, a great statesman, a mentor, someone we look up to, and now an ancestor. Our lives are influenced by those who came before, statesmen and stateswomen, community organizers, mentors, grandparents. One day we too will be ancestors. What is the legacy that we will leave through our words and our work? Friends on the journey, may we look backwards with gratitude at those ancestors in our family and chosen family, those ancestors from history, those movement ancestors. May we look back with gratitude, draw on their strength, and may we look within our own hearts and ask ourselves what we are doing that the generations that follow us will remember. May we look in our own hearts to see the ways in which we are interconnected, so that in big and small ways, we might build an interdependent community and bring more justice, more equity, more truth, more peace, more love to this world. May it be so. Amen and blessed be. Our anthem this morning is The Peace We Are by Dr. Ysaye Barnwell, another former member of Sweet Honey in the Rocks. And the version we will be hearing was performed by Dr. Barnwell and the General Assembly Virtual Choir this past June. If you'd like to sing along, the words will appear in the video.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
We drink from wells that we did not dig, and we sit in the shades we did not plant. As recipients of all we have received from those who have come before us, we are called to share our abundance with those who will come after us. As a voluntary association, our church is sustained through the gifts of the members and friends of this congregation. Your generosity makes it possible for us to hold online worship services, workshops, small groups, even in these unusual times. Your generosity allows us to be faithful stewards of our historic building so that it will continue to be a place of sanctuary and learning when it was once again safe to gather in person. Your generosity helps us strive for justice and live our congregation's values in the wider world. Please take this moment to visit our website, ufpc.org, and consider clicking on the donate button located on the home page. Let us open our hearts as these gifts to support the good works of United First Parish are joyfully given and gratefully received.
There are many ways to participate in the life and the leadership of our congregation. We have a few announcements this morning. Every week, our Director of Religious Education, Joan McDonald, creates a children's chapel service for families to watch in their own time. So those are posted on our UFPC website. And I'm going to paste the link to that in our chat. So families, please do remember to check that out. You can read about our other ongoing programs in the announcements that are emailed out on Thursday or Friday. And some of our special upcoming programs include tomorrow evening, there is going to be a vigil and projection art installation called Say Their Names in the courtyard of our congregation, of our church building. And we are co-hosting this along with Quincy for Transformative Change. And then in this election week, there will be several spaces to hold vigil and share what's on our hearts. On Tuesday, throughout the day, there is going to be an online vigil for Unitarian Universalists across the country that you can drop into at any time. That's posted in the chat, the link to the Facebook group. On Wednesday, the Quincy Interfaith Network is hosting an interfaith vigil, and there's a Facebook link for that as well. And again, that's a drop-in space. That one will have a reading and time to lift up prayers and some musical reflection. And on Thursday evening, the Unitarian Universalist Association is hosting a post-election vigil and community gathering. And our Board of Governors is also opening up our UFPC Zoom room as a space to share frustration, concern, process information, whatever it might be. We'll have that space open on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Details forthcoming. It'll be in the evening. And then next Sunday after church, I'll be holding a listening circle as well. So let us return to that deep breath. In our personal lives, as we have shared today, In the political life of our country, there is so much going on. So let us remember that breath is always there to ground us and guide us. So breathing together, let us hear our words of benediction, words by Joel Miller. Let our lives be a prayer that waters dry souls, men's broken hearts, refuses to be terrorized, seeks the world's beauty, and carries us through its storms. May we go in peace, and may we go in love to be a blessing to the world. Please join me in singing Carry the Flame as we extinguish the chalice. Please join us for our virtual social hour. This Sunday, we will have the opportunity to meet in small groups to discuss the prompt, who are the ancestors who inspire you to live your values today? We'll have two breakout questions, two breakout groups for those to reflect on that question. And we'll also have this general meeting room available for people who want a more casual conversation. So let us go into these breakout spaces to talk about those ancestors who inspire us to live our values today.